So please help me with a very simple exercise. To start the talk, please close your eyes, raise your hand, and touch your nose. I can see that most of you were able to do this without any effort, so cheers for that. But now, consider this. You did it without having to look at your hand. You also didn't have to make a complex plan. And you most certainly did not have to run any heavy calculations to touch your nose. You could say you simply knew. What this very simple exercise demonstrates is something fundamental, what we call bodily awareness. And this is the conscious perception, subjective, that we have about our bodies. Bodily awareness is there when we move around in the world with agility. It is also there when we manipulate objects with master, with dexterity. And it also helps us to adapt to changes swiftly. You can consider bodily awareness to be there always behind the scenes when we interact with our world, with our ever-changing world. This subjective experience that we have about our bodies relies on three fundamental sensory modalities: vision, touch, and one called proprioception. And I know that you may not be familiar with this term, proprioception. You can think of it as your body's inner sense. It tells you information about where your body parts are in space at all time, whether you are moving them and how fast, and how much effort you're putting into moving your body. Imagine that if you didn't have proprioception, you would have to look at yourself only to know where you are, which would be difficult, right? Now, think about a robot. It moves in the world. It has motors. It has joints. It has limbs. It has a physical body very much like we do. But what it does not have is bodily awareness. And because of that, it cannot adapt. It cannot consider change. Certainly, you could argue that robots do have some level of understanding about their body. But this is external, provided to them by someone else. You could consider it as a blueprint of the body, a fixed blueprint, one that does not change. And this is a problem. Because I hope you can all agree with me that in the real world, things change. And adaptation is key, it's crucial. We change, our very bodies change when we grow. For a robot, this can mean that the body wears down, maybe the sensors drift, or maybe a whole body part can be replaced. But the robot doesn't know this. This is not in the blueprint. And at some point, when change is too big, this can lead to failure. My name is Fernando, and my research at the Munich Institute of Robotics and Machine Intelligence revolves around one simple but fundamental idea. Robots need to have bodily awareness. And to understand why robots need to have bodily awareness, let's take a minute and see how we do it. Let's think about ourselves. In psychology and in neuroscience, there is this beautiful, remarkable concept, which is known as the body schema. What it is an unconscious, internal, constantly adapting, multimodal representation of the body that we use for perception and for action. And I know this sounds like a mouthful, but just keep in your memory that all it is an internal body map. And this internal body map is incredibly dynamic, plastic really. When we grow, it grows with us. It can adapt to these changes in our body. When we injure ourselves, say you break the leg, you cannot move a shoulder or your hand, the body schema will also take these limitations, you can call it that way, into consideration. But the body schema can go even as far as to integrating objects, external objects, into your internal body map. For example, when you pick up a hammer, when you pick up a tool, it will momentarily be part of your body schema. It is as if the hammer becomes an extension of your arm. The body schema is not only malleable, it is also multimodal. It takes information for many of your senses, in particular vision, touch, and proprioception, and it fuses them into a coherent description of the body, one that helps you understand it. So from the very moment we are in the womb, and by the time that we are born, we are already equipped with some proto-map of the body, a rough body schema that we will refine during our lifetimes. With the versatility of the body schema, we can actually adapt to our many diverse life situations. So you can actually say that having a body schema is the foundation to develop bodily awareness. At this point, I hope you can see that if we want robots to develop this sense of bodily awareness, we would probably need them to also develop a body schema or some form of it. But what do today's robots really have? What I can tell you is that they definitely do not have this dynamic, changing internal body map. Nope. You might recall what I said earlier. What they have is fixed blueprints of the body. This one-time set of information that is pre-programmed into their memories by teams of experts, teams of engineers. What these blueprints contain are mathematical abstractions of the body. They describe the body parts, the links, the joints, the motion dynamics of the body. It is an elegant theory and a powerful one. Do not get me wrong. We have been relying on this for decades already, half a century, just to control the robots that we have today. However, this theory faces challenges, particularly when confronted with change, with variability, and when unpredictability strikes. When a robot faces a situation that is unknown, when there is a failure in the joint, or maybe a body part gets replaced, and this information is not contained in this fixed blueprint, then probably you will have a whole system that is compromised. And what usually happens is that you will have the very same team of experts that program the robot. They will stop the robot, they will recalibrate the parts, they will readjust the model, and start the system again. But this is not necessarily an ideal way to operate. Just imagine that every time that you pick up a new tool, or every time that you hurt yourself, you would have to rely on other people to tell you how to move your body again. As I said, this is certainly not ideal. And what happens is that even though our robots today are sophisticated machines, sophisticated pieces of technology, in reality they are not as autonomous as we would really want them to be. They perform remarkably in controlled settings, in laboratory environments. But when facing reality, when reality strikes back, that's when they find difficulties. And then what I want you to consider is, what if we could do it differently? And in fact, we can do it differently. What if instead of giving robots this one-time fixed piece of knowledge, we let them learn this knowledge, learn this information about their bodies? And we could take inspiration from ourselves, from babies, from infants. So consider a baby robot that doesn't have a lot of information about itself. It comes with a blank slate, a tabula rasa, and starts experiencing the world and its body through its embodied sensors. Very much like us, it has some form of proprioception. It has sensors that convey information about the joint angles, joint velocity, joint torque. It also has tactile sensors that allow the robot to touch the world, to touch its body. maybe also to explore its own structure. It has cameras, a form of vision, that allow the robot to reconcile what it sees with what it feels. So at the beginning, the robot doesn't have much information. So what can it do? Again, just like a baby human, the baby robot will explore the world with random motions, what we call motor babbling. Just a technical term to say move randomly, hoping for something interesting to happen. And indeed, as the robot moves and the robot keeps collecting experience, it starts detecting relationships, some correlations, some patterns that allow the robot to think about the link between action and sensation. It allows it to realize, when I do this, I feel that. The more experience the robot collects, the more experience, relationships, patterns, it can make sense of this. And eventually, it starts making conclusions, information about its body, how the body may look like. It starts building a body schema. A body schema that, just like ours, will also be flexible, and the robot will be able to refine it and to adapt it. Now, you may be thinking, is this important? I'm here to tell you this marks an incredible shift, a shift that goes from pre-programmed knowledge to self-acquired knowledge. And is this impactful? What does it bring? I can tell you that robots that are able to learn a body schema and eventually develop bodily awareness also become resilient machines. Potentially, they could even keep functioning even when damaged. For example, you have a humanoid robot that maybe has a malfunctioning knee, but still can limp towards the objective just to complete the task, because the body schema allows it to adapt to this. You would also have machines that are more adaptable, that they would be capable of integrating into the body schemas a myriad of tools with the same simplicity that we do. Think about the example of the hammer. The robot would be able to do the same thing. Robots also become safer, because the nuanced description that the body schema provides them in terms of size, geometry, dimensions, mass, weight, allow them to operate with more caution around humans and other robots. And finally, they also become more efficient, because again, this nuanced description would allow them to find better ways to move, better ways that are energy saving and that reduce wear. And these are not just simple technical developments. They mark milestones towards finding true embodied intelligence. Embodied intelligence that learns, then adapts, and also coexists. And now that we are also talking about intelligence, why not entertaining for a minute the idea of self-awareness in robots? It has been defined pragmatically by other researchers as the ability to imagine ourselves in the future. And this view requires two main ingredients. It requires a capability to develop a model of the self, and also requires the capability to use this model to predict what will happen to your body. And you may be seeing now that there is a relation, maybe even an overlapping, between this view of self-awareness and bodily awareness. And what I can tell you is that robots that develop this body schema, this bodily awareness, they also develop an understanding of bodily affordances, which just means what they can do with their bodies or cannot do with their bodies. So equipped with these two ingredients, this dynamic internal body map and the awareness of what they can do with the body, robots could run in their minds many scenarios, simulated scenarios. Whenever tasked to accomplish a goal, they could use their knowledge about the body and the knowledge about what they can do with the bodies to try to find the best course of action to take. In a way, this gives them some certain level of physical self-awareness. And it would be better and far more efficient than just simple trial and error. So now, let's look at the bigger picture. Today's artificial intelligence is remarkable. You have seen that it allows us to predict how climate will change. It can generate video, images, text. It can talk about the world, and it can talk about motion that happens in the world, but it cannot enact in the world. We call it disembodied artificial intelligence. On the other hand, we have our sophisticated machines, our robots. They can actually interact with the world, but unfortunately, their learning and adaptation capabilities are still in the early stages. Robots that can develop this bodily awareness can bridge the gap between the power of artificial intelligence and our desire to have intelligent machines that interact with the world, to realize embodied artificial intelligence. And this is why having robots capable of developing bodily awareness is important, because this will help them move from pre-programmed machines, confined machines, towards intelligent, adaptable physical agents. Physical agents that are resilient, that are efficient, that are adaptable, and that are safe. Think about your little exercise at the beginning. When you touch your nose, for you it was a very simple demonstration of a self that you had all your life. For robots to accomplish this would be a demonstration of machines that, even if superficial, have developed an understanding about their physical selves. Thank you.